Just took a heavy sigh. I'm going to ask you guys to bear with me. I am going to do my best to get through this segment. When it comes to something of this nature, I do better with writing my words down to convey my feelings, and that's why I've written something special today. To all my fellow pet owners who have lost furry friends, this is your warning to protect your heart and your peace. Leeroy Brown, our beloved pup of 17 years, has crossed the Rainbow Bridge. Bart and I adopted Leroy as a puppy from Second Chance Pet Adoptions while we were living in Raleigh, North Carolina. We've had a lot of peaks and valleys the past 17 years, and Leroy's been there for all of them. Even as his muzzle grayed and he became our old man, which is what we affectionately called him, he always kept that sweet puppy face. 2 years ago, he was diagnosed with cancer. At 15 years old, we opted to forego treatment as it just seemed cruel to put him through all of that. And for 2 years with no treatment, he survived and he also thrived. But in the past 2 months, we've seen a steady decline. Daily accidents in the house, trouble walking, trouble standing, his quality of life had diminished greatly. I knew it was time, but it wasn't my call. You see, Bart is the best doggy daddy there is. There's a reason Leroy gave us 2 more years after his cancer diagnosis. And it's because of the attention and care Bart gave him. From his diet to his meds to vet visits. For years, Bart carried Leroy up and down the stairs every day so he could go to bed at night with us in our room with his brothers. That man loved him deeply. And only he could decide when it was time. So last Saturday night, Bart looked at me, and I knew he was ready to make the call. It was time for us to put Leroy out of his pain. I got online and scheduled the in-home vet visit. And you try to remind yourself over and over again that you're being merciful and that this is selfless and not selfish, but the guilt just still eats away at you. Bart carried Leroy up the stairs and laid him in the bed between us. I listened as Bart silently sobbed. He and I both knew that was the last time he'd get to carry Leroy to bed. So we both cried and loved on him for one last night. The next day, time practically stood still, the clock just looming because the vet was to arrive at 1 p.m. Leroy's favorite spot was in his bed in the sunroom so he could look out at the neighborhood. So I made a cup of coffee, and I sat in the sunroom with him until the vet arrived. Of course, the old man met her at the door, though he struggled to get there and to stay standing. It was time to say our final goodbyes. And I made sure Jimmy got to say his goodbye. I thought I'd done enough reading online about how to handle this type of situation with young kids, how to relay what was happening. But in true KK fashion, I botched it. That's another story for another time. But rest assured, Jimmy did get to say goodbye to his buddy Leroy. We have the sweetest neighbors who let Jimmy come over and stay with them while the vet administered Leroy's final dose of medicine. Bart held Leroy for a while as he came to terms with what was happening. The vet was so kind and patient and reassuring that we were doing the right thing. There were several moments when I thought maybe we don't have to do this, but that would have been selfish. Bart carried Leroy to his bed in the sunroom and laid next to him while I sat there on the floor and held his paw. Both Boone and Willie were in the sunroom with us. I just kept saying sorry over and over and over again. I won't forget the sweet kisses he gave me on my arm. It was like he was saying, "It's okay, Mom. I forgive you." Bart and I watched our sweet boy drift away. He was gone. The vet asked if she could get the stretcher to transport Leroy to her car, and Bart refused. He was going to carry Leroy one last time. Before he wrapped him in a sheet, he grabbed some hair off of Willie and some hair off of Boone because he wanted his brothers to go with him. And then Bart carried Leroy out of our house forever.
I stood at the door and watched my husband carry Leroy all the way down our driveway to where the vet had parked her car on the street. He stood there and cradled him, gave him a kiss, and he said his goodbye. The rest of the day, we were numb. At bedtime, I soothed Jimmy's tears. He finally understood that Leroy went to live with Parker and Pap, and he wouldn't be coming back home to us. To anyone who has loved and lost a pet and had to make that impossible decision, I am so sorry. Pets are pure, unconditional love, and that's why it hurts so bad. To our sweet old man who gave us 17 precious years, you're going to be missed. Tell Parker and Pap we said hey.
The Bert Show.